Recording before I forget. Okay. And I went ahead and threw everything from last time into a Word document. So I'm going to share that in the chat. Just because I'm kind of a visual written person, so it's easier for me to keep track of a written list of objectives than it is for me to keep track of discussions. So if anyone is similar, I'll probably start there. And then we can start with the grape. Okay. So we kind of got started last time on hardware, software, and volunteer stuff. I figured we'd probably start with the hardware/grape update. John, if you'd like to do that.
Okay, I ordered 25 sets of parts. They came in, and this morning I FedExed to Bill the 25 kits, the 25 PC boards, and a little surprise for Stan.
Oh. Thank you.
I got the FedEx tracking number, John.
Yeah, they asked me for a phone number. I figured you would be too upset if you got the tracking information.
No, I got it.
I'm currently in the process of building 3 of the RF decks. They're about 30% of the way done. When that's done, I will verify that, and then I'm going to go to the board house. In fact, I'm sending them a Gerber file this morning. I'm going to be quoting making the boards and get that started and rolling.
That's the Grape 2, right, John?
Grape 2, yes.
Doesn't go in this list then. This is a hard Grape 1 list, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I have a general update area.
Yeah, come on.
that's what I've been doing for the last week, is trying to keep that all up in the air. I have not reviewed Gary's list yet. I was hoping to do that before I shipped it, but I just didn't have enough bandwidth. So that's after this meeting's project.
So Rachel, when you say 25 kits and PC boards ordered, that's for the whole system? 25 kits?
So is kits, because we had a list of stuff.
Yeah.
All the components and the PC boards are on their way.
So I can check all of these stuff.
We'll have them tomorrow morning.
Parts.
No, those aren't.
This
It's
is
just the PC board and parts.
cool.
It's not the kit parts.
Correct.
Okay.
These are for the little red Grape PC boards and their parts that go upon.
Seems
And
a little reason.
for the station kit, there's all the connections and a Pi and etc.
Okay. John, I know we talked about ordering system stuffs through Solissa, but last week Solissa was on break.
Okay. Have not done anything with that. I don't have really have the list yet, so I have no idea what I'm ordering.
That is fair.
How about the 15 Bodnars that Nathaniel agreed to last week?
Did not move on that because I couldn't get a hold of Solissa. So
Who is Solissa?
that is the department secretary for Nathaniel's office.
Hmm.
She is the one with the golden credit card
Hmm.
that has access to the account that has the money in it that's funding this.
Is she in the same building?
Yep.
Can you go get in her face?
If I drive 5 hours.
Yeah, she's
Oh.
in Bellsville.
She's not in the same building as you
She's
are.
in Scranton, not
She's in
the
Scranton.
case.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, Nathaniel is also out this week at a conference.
He's in what, Switzerland or something like
Yep.
that? Life's rough.
Okay. And then we do have any other general Grape updates before I move on?
Great. Returning to this, no.
Uh,
Was there a question?
yeah, I'm saying, okay, 25 micro SD cards. That's
That
for the
has
bare,
nothing-
that's for the bare cards. There's gotta be some kind of image put on
Yep.
them or available.
I had a discussion with Nathaniel. And the way we tentatively led it was that I was gonna burn those images on those chips.
Bespoke images for the
Yeah,
chips
yes,
too?
yes. What I'll need to do is I'll need to have a list of the users and information about each user, so I can set up the configurations and everything.
So you would create the users, universe UA accounts and all that?
If need be.
I mean, I can work with Bill on getting
Well,
those
Yeah,
signs.
what I'd really prefer is if all the users who are gonna participate would create their own accounts on personal space for the station network, and I could work from that.
I can work with Gary and getting the node number stuff assigned for that. Because I think he's already got the list, so that should be pretty straightforward.
Well, like I say, I would prefer that the users create accounts on PSWS network,
Okay.
because that creates them an account, creates all the directories and the token that the system is going to use. Because my understanding is that this is going to be using my Grape image that does everything through digital RF and GNU radio.
My
That's what
understanding, yeah.
That's what Nathaniel has been requesting me to do. So
Now, is that a straight digital RF implementation, or did you do any custom coding with that?
it's got some custom coding in it,
Okay, I kind of thought so, but I wasn't sure.
but what the custom coding is trivial. We're no longer using the Adafruit GPS. But digital RF, when you start it, it has to have the current date time. So I've got a Python module that runs each time it starts, and it supplies the current date time to GNU radio, so it can push it into the DRF metadata.
That sync with the OS timestamp as well? I mean, you're using an
It
NT.
gets it gets it from the OS.
Okay, so it's through an NTP, Damon.
Yeah. Well, the idea is the image has NTP on it.
Okay,
That image couldn't run standalone, then you have to have the network, is that right?
correct.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well,
Well,
if
if you were
it's-
to record something off, where you didn't have the internet or something, if you had.
Yeah, the system has to be on the internet, because it's going to do an automatic upload every day. The way it works is each day it creates a new observation and uploads the previous day's observation, which is supposed to be exactly 24 hours worth of data.
And again, the quantity of data is going to be what?
I don't know right off the top of my head.
Big.
No, it's not that. It's not. Let me look. Oh, I'm gonna take I can give me 2 seconds. I'll look on the system and I'll tell you what a day's observation is.
Just curious.
That,
The day in the life of DRF.
knowing that number will be a huge help, because if I'm going out and talking to these people, that some of them have been asking that question to make sure they've got adequate.
Right, okay. Each day, a single channel that is a single frequency for 24 hours is 34.16 megabytes.
It's not bad. So I want to say the Grape 1 is something like 5 megabytes. So about 7 times the size.
5 gigabytes. No. Sorry. Are you
Let me-
talking about the 8,000 sample per second?
No. That's Grape 2.
I'm sorry. Never
So let
mind.
me just confirm this, because it's so important. So the average person we expect will have a Grape 1 running GNU radio, Probably monitoring 10 megahertz, not been fully decided. In 24 hours, their upload should be just a little over 34 megabits or bytes.
Megabytes. But now, here's one thing to consider. It might be more than this, and the reason I say this is that I am saving just a 10 hertz wide bandwidth. That's what the 34 meg is. If somebody tells us that we need to, in addition to that, save the 4 kilohertz wide or 8 kilohertz wide, it will be dramatically larger than this.
I think that's what Nathaniel wants, is the 8 kilohertz.
So, and it's really best to save both, because the software can very handily analyze the smaller bandwidth and produce nice plots relatively quickly. If it has to go through the whole 8 kilohertz, the software will take a lot longer to
Sure.
do each one. So
One thing I did find is that the Western Digital purple drives, the 4 terabyte ones are like $92, but there's a limit of 5 per order. So
That was gonna be my question. Are the users expected to have that hard drive to do this with the GNU radio?
yeah, and with that hard drive, we're probably going to have an external power supply case for it, because I don't think plugging that into the Raspberry Pi port it's going to.
right. Yeah, it needs to have an extra, because it's a drive that's designed to plug into a desktop, so it needs the external adapter that allows it to communicate over USB.
Because you can get the SATA to USB power cords, and that's what I was planning on doing when we were using the solid state drives, but the spinning drives take a lot more current.
Yes.
Let's hold off on that till we get to the system components list, because that'll all come up and answer Dave's questions and everything else.
Sure.
The thing is, it does require 12 volts.
What's that?
Yeah,
The hard drive.
you'll see that in the components list in a little bit.
So you can't just plug it into USB, is the point.
Right.
On the solid states you can, but yeah, the spinning.
Yeah, the purple drive requires 12 volts.
Yeah, it's got to run the motors with that.
So you plug it into power and USB.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I was also gonna have Kung do a update on whether, I don't know if this is more of a for Zelvolan telling you, but have you had a chance to do an image test yet for the digital RFs?
Whiskey Bravo 2 Yankee Zulu X-ray.
Oh, sorry. Turn that.
Not yet actually. So recently, well, I just finished setting up the hardware. There have been some setback. The system that I have right now is from Veronica, and there was some missing components. And the GPS antenna, apparently it requires me putting it near a window, and where I set it up right now is nowhere near a window, so I had some workaround with that.
Yeah, that's a problem. You got to have GPS.
Yeah. So we
Because
took the signal from another experiment and split it. And split it to use for my system. Let's see what else. So and also somebody was saying something.
The other possibility is you can VNC into that, so you could remotely locate the thing by a window and there's a VNC into it.
Yeah, that could work as well. But there was another experiment running right next to my system that also have a GPS antenna in it, and we just took the signal from that.
Oh, okay.
And also, I received some very useful information from Bill regarding the uploader. So today I'm gonna go to campus and set all that up and see if we can get my Grape operational. And because of all that setback with the Grape 1, I've been helping John with the Grape 2. I've been writing a Python program to plot the output of the ADD in the Grape 2. So that's going to be quite useful for diagnostic. As you
It's
said.
actually gonna be useful for multiple things. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and additionally, I was on the phone with George this week, and he mentioned something about some simple way for the user to be able to diagnose, the Grape 1, the output of it, without having to wait for the data to come onto the server. So maybe we can repurpose this program that just wrote for the Grape 2 for that.
That's going to be tricky because the A to D stream is coming through the audio chain. That's not as trivial. We can talk about that. Digi has the scope function built into it, so that really should be all you need. Because you can look at the FFT, the spectrum, or the scope signal.
FL Digi, there's a mode that you can run FL Digi in that just displays the waterfall.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are you gonna equip these Grape 1 systems with FL Digi as well as GNU Radio and digital RF?
Yeah, Bill, how are you setting up the signal level for your digital RF? How do you know what you've got? You're muted, Bill.
I never really thought about that. I'm just taking whatever's coming in and saving it as it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, for setting it up, you have to make sure you have things like the antenna connected and stuff like that.
And it'd be good to know tonight
That would help.
rather than tomorrow.
But the way I've got the software set up is that it produces a waterfall on the screen. If you plug it up and all you get is a blank screen and no signal there, the antenna is not there or something's going on. So it just uses the QT waterfall feature of GNU Radio.
Would it have a way to look at the amplitude of the signal relative to full amplitude?
Well, put it this way, I expect that could be easily set up.
Okay.
I don't have something set up to do that now, but it's.
Yeah, I suspect they're going to need that because you get a user in there, they have no idea what they're getting. And you'd hate to be getting, null data for 25 nodes. That visualization is huge for helping set up. At least that's what I found with the other Grape 1 stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to have that. For instance, if you had a transmitter on site and you wanted to monitor your Grape while you're transmitting, just to make sure you're not getting interference, that'd be helpful there too.
Yeah, I'll look and see if there's something in GNU Radio that displays the signal level. Tom McDermott can help me if I can't figure it out, because he's really internally. He knows GNU Radio very well. So.
That's the person you want to talk to. Yeah. Save you a lot of time.
Yes.
Okay. Any other general questions on software? Because if not, we do also need to talk about station selection.
It's just a small point. That Python calling program will eventually be converted to C.
Okay.
Oh, this one at the top for the Grape 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I initially had Kung develop a little program that plots amplitude versus sample number for the 3 radios on the Grape 2. And you can select how many samples. All 8,000 will be 1 second, but it's just going to be a solid bar. So I had them set it in multiples of 100 samples. If you do 100 samples, I think you can see 5 sine waves, and it gives you a very nice indication of if you got a signal or if it's clipping. That's the kind of thing you're looking for. Because on Grape 2, we have to be able to set the input gain between 1, 2.5, 4, or 10. So we need some visualization to be able to do that. And of course, it has to run for the 24 hours because you have to see nighttime propagation as well as daytime propagation. But this little snapshot program we're starting to work on will be perfect for taking a quick look at, do you have a signal? Where are you clobbering the input or stuff like that? Hung did a really nice job, by the way. It's really impressive. I'm very impressed.
Thank you for answering all my questions. I've been bombarding.
Yeah, you nailed it. No, you didn't bombard me. That's what I expect in development, and you nailed it. Do you have a sister?
I wasn't sure if I did something right because I keep seeing strange things on the display. So
Yeah, well, the stuff I sent you wasn't really. I mean, one thing was the noise floor that Bill Blackwell had sent me for the radio, and then the other one was just the fake data. So you haven't seen real data yet, but I'm working on it.
sounds good.
And Dave Caston is also working on the software for the amplitude frequency stuff that you're going to be feeding in the array, and we'll talk about that next.
Okay.
Because that'll dovetail nicely in for the digital RF, because then you split them out, they both get it. So I've got the sequence all set up, so we'll talk. Anyway, back to net.
Okay, Gary, did you want to talk about how the station update is going? If nobody has any questions, comments, or concerns about hardware and software.
Okay, yeah, if I could, I'll share my screen and show you where we're at. And there's a couple of other questions from the people on the call today, so it's good that we're all here. Oh, you've got to shut yours off, I think, Rachel. There you go. Thank you. Okay, get these stupid controls out of the way. I can see what I'm doing. So there's a lot of detail in this file, but all I really want you to take a look at is, recall I took well, let's take a look at the map. I took the Cedar map, realized it's really hard to read, but put the station locations Nathaniel identified in the grant as 26 locations, Alpha through Zulu. Pretty straightforward. So for each one, I know the state and the grid square he's after. And anything in green is where I found a willing and able host. If you add everything up, there's like I said, there's 26 slots and 65% of them are filled, which I don't know, 15 or 16 of them. Just in case you're curious, I mean, the actual grid square he was after was CN86. The nearest host we've got is the next grid over. That's location Alpha +1. That's just one grid to the north. That's my little key in this hole.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So and you'll see, a lot of them. Well, so we're getting somewhere now. The problem is that it gets harder as you get near the end, because some of these things, like this one here, golf. I said the nearest city is called Mon, middle of nowhere. You will see something probably on the reflectors in the next day or so, asking for people to help fill in some of these gaps. A couple of quick questions. I know Bill's here. Bill, you're going to have a GNU radio system running down in Florida for the eclipse in October. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's in Vero Beach,
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah, I think I've got your details in that, but I'm only putting people in here once I've confirmed it. So we have, so that's great. I'll put you in there. And then Dave, I know we had some correspondence this morning. You had a couple of questions. So far as the existing nodes, we want to reassign one of the existing Grape ones to Mike Lombardi. Is that correct?
Well, it was given to Mike over a year and a half ago, and I thought it had been reassigned, but it keeps popping up that I have node 27. So yeah, we need to reassign that to Mike, and I gave you his information.
Get the information to me, because I'm the one who makes the reassignment.
Right. I'll take care of doing that. So that's
Okay.
cool. But eventually, Dave, you'll be able to get your station back up and running, because you're kind of our WWV control spot, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be putting the station in actually tomorrow afternoon, closer to WWV and away from my house, so I can operate and not worry about blowing the front end of the radio.
Did I send
Right.
you boards, Dave?
John, you sent me two of the Grape version 1.12, and
okay.
one of those is located at node 16 here. I'm gonna locate that to a new QTH tomorrow afternoon, I hope.
Okay.
And then I upgraded Mike Lombardi's. He brought his other one up. And so Mike has a version 1.12 for node number 27. So this actually is freed up. He had a working version 1.1 board.
Mhm.
And I have that board right now and it works. It's not one that I blew the front end on with lightning or anything, John. So do you have a need for that version 1.1?
I'd rather have you have a version 1.12 because the front end protection's a lot more robust.
I understand that. I've got that and I'm all set with node 16 and node 27, but I now have an extra version 1.1 board that was node 27 that was working with Mike Lombardi. Do you want that board back? Could that be retasked?
I think we could probably retask it through you somehow.
Okay, I'll keep it here.
Yeah,
And
keep it here.
if you have an idea, I mean, I could monitor two frequencies that way.
We had a couple of high schools we were talking about. Maybe we could get something going on with that. But again,
Yeah.
I'd rather have a higher, better input protection one there.
That's probably not happening immediately. So for now, for October, I'm going to get this located close to WWV, away from me as an operator, and you should have a very good ground reporting. I could set up a second pi there and record a second frequency with the Grape 1.1.
Yeah, well, you're also slated to get a Grape 2 as well. So,
Well, but not before October. So I'm right.
at this point, I'm
Right.
going to say yes.
Yeah. So I'm just saying I have an extra Grape 1.1. I could monitor two frequencies if that's the request. And the other question I had posed to Gary was, what frequency are you wanting to have a control measurement of? Is it 10, was it agreed 10 megahertz? Is that what we're working on?
The science team hasn't made that decision yet. That's Nathaniel and his crew should figure that one out. So
Yeah, initially he was talking 5, but there's no daytime propagation on 5 for the solar event. So we're talking about going to 10. And that's universally available because 15 is only available on the version 1.12. So yeah, so I'm guessing 10 is probably going to be what you're targeting. But
5 is pretty weak in Flagstaff, 500 miles away.
yeah,
right.
And
So
Dave,
anyhow, but like I said, some of this stuff is going to be decided by the so-called science team. So it's no use us debating it right now.
yep.
Well, one thing to be aware of on 10 megahertz is that there is a 10 megahertz signal floating around in your shack when you have a Leo Bodnar running, and that overlaps. I mean, it's pretty strong. It overlaps with the signal you're trying to monitor. So 10
Yeah,
megahertz.
proper grounding is important. Because I've
Yeah.
got 4 10 megahertz oscillators running in my shack. And fortunately, I'm not having any interference problems, but I'm pretty meticulous about grounding.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of 10 megahertz in my shack as well. And as long as I keep cables short, I don't seem to have a problem. Really has to do with where the antenna is.
So I have a quick question for you, John, on the configuration of the Grape. When you run through the configuration, I'm going to set it up tomorrow. I'm going to set it up for 5 megahertz, which is what I've been measuring with node 16. But it's not going to be at my QTH. So if I have the VNC set up, can I reassign a frequency? Can I reset the Leo Bodnar remotely and also reassign the frequency, reboot the thing from a remote location without having to be at the QTH that it's at?
If you can VNC into it, yes, you should be able to do that.
And so it would correct, it would then reset the frequency and everything. I can't move the jumper. That's the only problem, you know.
Yeah, that's
I physically have to move the jumper, but I'm only going to be 5 kilometers away, so maybe I don't need to move the jumper. I don't know.
if your antenna is too good, you may have the other problem where you're overloading the front end. So that's where you really need to look at it on the scope on FLD.
Right, the FL Digi, I'll get a sense of that right when I set it up. But I'm just thinking this through and realizing I can't change the frequency without physically going to the location.
The jumper is, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, never mind. That
close,
answers
you might be
that.
able to get away with it. So who knows?
Well, when
Dave,
they settle on a frequency, then I'll go out and reset the frequency to whatever they want. Okay, thanks.
Dave, one thing I found, I bought a 10 megahertz bandpass filter from Array Solutions, and I keep that in mind. And I've run 700 watts. Antennas are very close together, and so far I haven't bothered the Grape with the power from the 700 watt amp.
What was the filter you have?
It's a bandpass filter used for field or specified for field day people. It's 10 megahertz and is from Array Solutions. They make all sorts of filters for, in a field day situation, you've got 100 transmitters within 500 feet. And this helps sort them all out.
Yeah, I've used them before. I didn't know it would work so well with the Grape at your QTH. That's pretty good.
It works here.
Well, as John can get the test and looking at some of my files, you can see when I forgot to turn off the Grape and broadcast 500 watts. So
Okay, any other questions on the locations? Like I said, it's still a work in progress, but I appreciate everybody's help, especially locating some of these harder areas, so.
hey, and one other question. If you wanted me to run a GNU radio here, I only have a Raspberry Pi with 2 megabit or 2 gig. So if there are, would it be possible to get a Raspberry Pi before October to set that up for the GNU here for the control or not?
Could be.
Dave, I'll put that in your notes and the file I'm keeping of all the locations that you need a bigger Pi.
He needs a bigger.
I have the same question. We've got a number of 2 gigabyte Raspberry Pis out here, and I hate to see them go to waste, but is there any way we can use those for the upcoming eclipses?
I don't know if it'll work with the digital RF. I think that might be pushing it.
Well, can we get a test setup or something? I've got 2 of these new in the box, and Lee's got a couple of them also. They were what was available when we bought them.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of other people too.
That would sure help
Sorry,
with.
I was distracted. What are you trying to see if will work?
They're trying to run a GNU radio with only 2 gig of memory instead of the 4.
No, that won't work.
I didn't think so, but
Could you run the FL Digi with 2 gigabyte?
I don't know. I think I've got a 4 for the FL Digi setup.
yeah,
I'm just thinking you could swap the Pis if you needed the 4 for GNU, and you could get away with 2 for the FL Digi.
yeah, I don't know if it'll work with 2 or not. I've never tried it. I never had that one a small.
Is there anybody that could try that? Because again, a lot of these stations have been coming, I mean, that would save a lot of money and a lot of aggravation if we didn't have to buy so many Pis and ship them around.
There was a comment earlier about the newer Pis not working with some of the software.
Yes, make a long story short, the Raspberry Pi folks, even though it's a 4B, they do increment the hardware occasionally. So if you've bought a 4B, pick a number in the last few weeks or months, I think the hardware version is called 1.5 or some such thing. George has the details, but anyhow, the operating system that was developed a couple of years back for the earlier versions of the 4B will not run on the latest and greatest versions of the 4B. So it
Correct.
requires an update.
I've had
Correct.
mine sitting around here for a couple of years, so maybe they're okay.
Yeah,
It should be, yeah. They're vintage.
Thanks. So
Gary,
am I.
I'll try to. I've got a 4B with 2 gig, and I'll try to see if I can get FL Digi to run on that one. And
Yeah,
I'll
that would
get-
help a lot.
I'll get back to everybody next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
Where you will run into trouble is when it's doing the processing at the beginning of the day, trying to create the files. That's where it'll crash if it runs out of memory. Because that's kind of memory intensive the way we did it.
Well, one question on that, just thinking out loud here. You know, you can set up a swap area if you have sufficient disk. So it may be possible to run something that is fatter than the system allows for that case where it's doing some swap, where it can swap. I know we have to set up a swap area for when we compile GNU Radio on a system that's only 4 gig. The system requires more than 4 gig to complete the compile, and it works fine if you set up a couple gig swap area. I wonder if that would work for the file setup.
If you're using the micro SDs, the constant writing to that is a concern.
Well, you say constant. I mean, didn't you say it was like a once a day thing?
Should be once a day, yeah.
Yeah, that might not be too bad on it.
Okay.
But if we're talking about setting up a Western Digital Purple series to go with each of these,
That's no big, that's a
it
no-brainer.
would system like that is happy as a clam running with constant writing. So, yeah.
Yeah, the trick is we're trying to keep the legacy systems, the FL Digi systems running
Oh,
while
yeah,
we're going ahead with the GNU radio. So
right.
that's part of the trick. A lot of
Right.
swapping around to make it. But if Dave does his test, that will help a lot. Okay, if there's no more questions on the location, let me take a quick look at the components list that I compiled with help from a couple of people. So the reason I got started on this one is we need it, obviously, but as many of these people I've gone out and asked them about hosting, they've come back and said, hey, I'd be happy to buy the hardware, just tell me what I need and I can put it together. My supposition is many of these people are not probably comfortable or equipped to do surface mount assembly. So the possibility exists that we may just send them an assembled and tested Grape 1.12 and they'll take care of the rest. Obviously in the SD card image too, but anyhow, they'll take care of the rest. So that's why I wanted to get this hardware list together for that reason as well. I mean, the RF side, obviously the Grape, the Bodnar, those are pretty well known, the cables and an antenna. I mean, those are no question about those 5 things.
How about the GPS antenna?
Well, that's supplied with the Bodnar, right?
Well, that's a little one of them little square ones, yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
little hockey puck.
Right, so that's why I made a comment, it's supplied with the GPS. On the computing components, I think you just answered this question for me. I wanted to make sure the GNU radio required 4 gig or greater memory, and it sounds like that's true. So I can, that stake is going in the ground. The Raspberry Pi power supply, we've talked about needing a 3 amp supply just for the Pi. We didn't have any sourcing information. I just picked the Raspberry Pi version of their 15-watt supply as a suggested. I have no idea if it's quiet or noisy or anything else, but that seemed like a good start. The passive cooling case we talked about last week, I've got that. I pulled that out of the chat from last week. And I also saw earlier today that the GNU radio imagery is going to be a 32 gig micro SD card because we're not storing any data on it, it's just the OS. So I put down a 32 gig card.
Sounds good.
Obviously large is fine, but. And I've got, I heard the same comment you made, John, from somebody else, that the cheaper cards don't work. And they said, you need to go with the Samsung Pro Endurance, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yep, I've heard that.
Yeah, you get them for $7. So yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Okay, so far on the data storage side, we've talked at length. The Western Digital, I put down 2 terabyte blue hard drive. These are the specs I pulled off of Amazon. And it sounds like 2 terabytes is sufficient. That we keep going back and forth on that. If that's sufficient, that's what I'll put down.
Actually, I should say Nathaniel was talking about the 4 terabyte purple. And they're 92.
I'm running in my system.
Yeah. And for that, bigger is better.
Yeah, I've been running my system for a couple of years, pretty much 24/7, and it's happy.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty good internal cache.
Yes, that's what makes it nice.
And so a lot of that, it just writes once in a while. You're writing to it constantly, but you just see the light blink once in a while when it decides to purge that to the spinning platter.
Okay, I'll look up the specs on that and update this particular cell, but I'll
You
put
remember
down
they
40
were,
terabyte per.
they were like $92 a piece, but when I was trying to order some, there was a limit of 5 per person, so.
Hmm.
That being be an issue for trying to place a large order.
Multiple
How
people.
many of them do we need? We can get 5 people to order 5 apiece, then we got 25 of them.
Well, the problem is reimbursing and cash flow. 'Cause I
Yeah.
used to do it
Need
that-
a magic card.
Yeah, so
Right, right.
I'm not sure how we're gonna handle that.
There might be other sources for it, though.
Yeah. Like Western Digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put down a comment on sourcing. Okay. Moving along, we know we need a USB to SATA adapter and we need power for that hard drive. So this particular one that I found from Wavelink, I don't know the first thing about them, happens to include the 1202 amp power adapter. Until somebody buys one and tries it, I guess I'll have to assume they'll work, but that seems to be the requirement.
Is that the one you're using, Bill?
Oh, man, let
Yeah,
me see. I bought
bought it
this
a long time ago.
several years ago. The one that I have is the brand is Sabrent.
Right.
Sabrent, Sabrent.
Found their stuff to be pretty decent.
Okay, I'll take a look and see what I can find from them. And if I got any questions, Bill, at least I know where we heard that.
And that changes. I mean, if even in 6 months, that whole landscape changes of what's available. So it's going to be what we have and what we can find now. So
Right.
it's really more the manufacturer you're after.
Okay. So that takes care of the storage. The audio is pretty easy. The Sabrent USB that, John, you've got the links and everybody's been using that and the audio cable's been working fine. That's no brainer.
Good, good.
So I put down a miscellaneous components based on comments from some who've been through this before. Everybody's, if they need a micro HDMI to HDMI cable, keyboard, mouse. I wanted to put down that it's optional if people want to power their Grape from 12 volts DC, that's fine. As long as it's obviously a clean supply. And
It actually could be anywhere from 6 to 17 volts
6
DC.
to 17.
Yeah.
And
In order to eliminate noise, I had to get rid of my switching power supply and buy a linear power supply for powering all this.
The nice thing about well, actually the Grape is protected to Grape 1, but there is a reverse input protection. You can run those things up backwards and won't hurt them. Except that the diode on the Grape 1.1 will conduct and short it out, but Grape 2 doesn't have that.
I had to wind the cable from the Raspberry Pi power supply around I think it was a MiG 75 toroid to get rid of the switching noise in my shack.
Doesn't surprise me.
Another
So
thing
that-
that I had to do is I had to get a powered USB hub. Because I found out when I had everything plugged into it, I was causing the Raspberry Pi to trip out, to crash due to low voltage. So that's something to consider.
Yep.
And that's yet another thing that has its own little adapter wall wart.
now, is this a list of components that are going to be included in this initial tranche of 20 or so Pis or 20 or so systems?
Well, we're not providing the keyboard, the mouse, the
That's
hub,
my point,
or
yeah.
the
Do they belong on this list? Because we have said the user has to provide a keyboard, mouse, and display.
the problem
Right. The other
keyboard and mouse
The other
is
thing, George, is I'm
Yes.
sending this out to the stations that want to host, just to remind them what they might need. If they're
Oh.
buying their own equipment, that's
Okay,
why I've got O for optional, so I'm not obligating you guys to supply all this stuff.
well, the
but,
USB ports concern me because we've got one for the sound card, one for the Leo
Partner.
Bodnar, and one for the USB drive. So that leaves you one port. And if you have a keyboard and a mouse, that's 2 more.
unless you get a hub.
Or you get a wireless mouse. keyboard combination. That's probably what you should suggest, because those are cheap. You can get them for like $20.
And we found that it's hard to fit those onto the Pi, to use all four USB ports because the sound card is too wide,
Yep. It can be done. It does fit, but it's a tight fit.
Yeah, you can buy a little 6-inch pigtail for the sound card.
That wouldn't affect anything, right? Pigtail might be a really good addition.
Yeah.
Well, I just put my sound card on the powered USB hub.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll do it.
I mean, the powered USB hub sounds like it's fairly critical. And again, we're trying to build, in some cases, plug and play systems that we're going to
The
supply
sound
people.
card doesn't pull any power. The Bodnar pulls about 250 mils. The hard drive is probably where you're going to run into problems with it browning things out.
Well, that's powered though. It's a powered USB drive, right?
Right.
Well,
pick that up.
the adapter, it plugs into its own wall wart. So the
So
power.
that really wouldn't draw any power from the Pi's power supply.
No, it
Right.
It should be a
Well,
USB.
I tell you what,
USB.
I don't know exactly why I had so much trouble with this, because if you can, okay, let's say you have an unpowered USB hub, plug it into the Pi, plug in the sound card, the keyboard, the mouse, and the drive, plug all that in,
yeah, that'll
and
run
the Pi didn't have enough power to run.
right.
And I don't know exactly why, what is causing it to have problems, but that's where I had to substitute into powered USB.
Yeah, the keyboard and the mouse definitely takes power, and that's probably enough with the Bodnar to push it over the edge.
So,
Because on mine, I just have the little wireless USB, and that pulls next to nothing.
and what you got to be careful of, this was one of those things where it can trip out unexpectedly. I mean, you bring it up and it seems to be running, but then all of a sudden it just freezes, or you get a black screen of death.
Yep.
And that will really be a nightmare for people having systems fail and they don't know why. And it's just simply because the system is underpowered. So I would suggest a powered USB hub, and it wants to be one that supports full speed USB.
Yeah, the 3.0.
The blue and later when we go to using the RX 888, that can be repurposed because it's high speed enough to handle the data rates on the.
Yep.
I guess the question for you, Bill, is the wall wart you're running the Raspberry Pi, was it one of the earlier ones that was only 2 amps with the micro USB connector?
No, I'm running it on a great big chunky 10 amp linear power supply. And it's got a USB port on it. It's got a bunch of USB ports on it.
Okay, but I'm referring to the one with the Grape or the Raspberry Pi that was browning out on you.
I'm running that on a linear power supply now. I'm running a linear power supply, a big chunky linear power supply.
What were you running it on originally?
The power supply that came with the Raspberry Pi when I bought it as part of a Cana kit.
Yeah, that was probably a 2 amp, and that would explain why I was browning out. The 3 amp ones tend to be a little bit more resilient, especially with the USB-C connection. Chances are we might not need that with the USB-C connection, but.
No, I'm using the Cana kit power supply, and I'm running the Bodnar off of one of the USB-C ports, and a wireless dongle on one of the USB not C ports. And it's working just fine.
Yeah, it could be a matter of timing too, because the later Cana kits, mine claims it's 5.1 volts at 3.5 amps.
Yeah,
You know,
the
who knows?
newer Cana, because the earlier Cana kits were 2 amp.
Yeah.
You could tell because the wire to them was kind of like either 20 gauge or 22 gauge. It was really wimpy. And if you put a voltmeter on there, you could see the thing brown out. So yeah.
So here's a fundamental question, and we told people, we were planning to tell people that a wired Ethernet connection is best. Plug it into your router or your switch. And if necessary, turn off the wireless because that was also a noise generator, if I remember. But if people need the wireless to run headless, or they're gonna have a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse, I
Well, the
guess is that
wireless
okay? We've got
mouse has-
wireless and wired.
The wireless keyboard and mouse does not use the wireless on the Raspberry Pi. It has its own little USB receiver
Little dongle, yes.
dongle, so you still can shut off the wireless on the Raspberry Pi.
Okay, but that'll draw current from the Pi, so now we're back to the,
Well, the current drawn by the dongle,
Minimal,
just the receiver, it's very small. Because the keyboard and the mouse are going to be both battery powered.
correct.
got it.
Logitech makes one for like $19, and it's really
Doesn't the keyboard and mouse communicate via Bluetooth? It's not even wireless.
Correct. It is no wires, but Bluetooth, not wireless.
yeah, but it doesn't use the Bluetooth on the Raspberry Pi either.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Use the Bluetooth on the dongle.
Yeah, the dongle takes care of all of it, so it's independent of the Raspberry Pi.
Right.
You
Are
know,
you discouraging USB keyboard and mouse?
No,
well, we
okay.
don't have enough plugs to do it unless you have the.
Well, there's the hub again. I mean,
Yeah.
that I always have to have a hub on it.
I'm doing it now with, like I say, I'm using 3 of the 4 ports. And
But that note, wired components require power from the Pi. It's not,
these
it's
are
not
not
loading the
wired.
Pi down.
These are Bluetooth keyboard and mouse with one dongle. They share a dongle.
Oh, you're all set then, yeah. But your battery and your keyboard and mouse are all battery operated, correct?
Correct.
That's the way to go. Like I said, Logitech makes a really nice one.
Yep, that's what I'm using. Got it at the
Okay.
Micro Center for $20.
Yeah, that sounds right. They have them on sale every now and then.
So it's kind of an either or situation. If you're gonna go with a wireless keyboard and mouse with they're more or less self-powered, you probably don't need the powered hub, because again, if we're gonna be playing, there's more stuff
Correct.
we've got to buy, supply, and it comes out of the grant. So I just,
Well, the
Well, that's
wireless
true.
keyboard and mouse we're not going to provide because that implies we have to provide a monitor as well, because that implies, setting it up.
right.
So we're not doing that.
I have to say, I'm still confused by your comment, wired components require power from the Pi. What you're actually saying is it requires a USB port.
Well, the USB port gets its power from the Pi on the Pi, from the USB ports on the
Yeah,
Pi.
but it's not putting any load on the power supply. It's just
It
that you need
certainly
the
is.
port.
It certainly is. Where do you think it's getting the power from?
No, I'm saying it's minimal. It doesn't
Hang on.
load the
It's-
supply
Keyboard
significantly.
and the mouse actually draws it's not a full USB 2 load, but it actually is a couple hundred mils. And that's enough to put you over the edge on a 2-amp dongle or 2-amp power supply.
Okay,
That's why they went with the 3-amp USB-C.
okay.
So I'm
I've
thinking
never
ahead
seen
to
it pull
George's-
it down, but whatever.
You get the little yellow lightning bolt and then it crashes.
I'm just thinking ahead to George's questions about, we're gonna have to have an instruction manual on how to set this system up, and there's gonna be some either or stuff, it sounds like, if
Yeah, when you first set it up, you probably are going to need a monitor and keyboard.
Yes.
Kind of hard to do it without it because you have to set up the wireless first or the wired. Although if the wired, you still have to get the address to use for the VNC.
Yeah, we're running into that on some of our research instruments where if it's wired, wireless, the Pi doesn't seem to remember the
address?
wireless, the address and password. You have to have a actual keyboard and
There's a trick
monitor
to
on
that.
it to get the information in.
There's a trick to that. You have to reboot it with it connected. That's where it stores it. If you just put it in and run it, you have to cycle power because if you
Okay, but
it won't save it.
yeah, so you have to reboot it rather
Reboot it.
than power
Then,
it down and power it back up again.
It tries to reattach to the last wireless thing it was attached to.
Okay,
Try
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I've been bit by that before.
yeah. Well, I've got one that isn't calling home again.
Yeah, do a reboot. It should save it.
So I got to explain how to get it put in. So that is going to require a monitor and keyboard and that's all.
Sadly, that's true.
Okay. So
Thanks for
I'll
the
just
tip.
put down in my notes that the power tub may be needed if you're going to use 3 to 4 ports on the Pi. It's just in my mind, I'm thinking that this plug and play system that we're going to deliver to people isn't quite as plug and play because they've got to have a keyboard, they've got to have a mouse. We're obviously not going to supply all that. But boy, we just need to make this clear to people when they're signing up to be hosts.
That they have to have a keyboard, mouse on display.
Right.
Yeah, they have to have some technical background also, be able to program this stuff. I mean, you just can't give it to somebody who's never seen a computer before, because there's some assumptions about how to boot a Raspberry Pi, how to run it.
I just plug it in and turn it on. But
Yeah, well, there are people that are afraid of doing that. I know I'm married to one. She won't even plug it in, let alone try and program it. So yeah.
Well, we should perhaps weed them out.
Okay, yeah, we got to figure that out. And just the last comment I want to make is that as I've been approaching the people that are hosts, I'm telling them that we're not making the final decision yet. The science and research team's got to pick who is or isn't going to end up with the system because of their location. So anyhow, so right now I've talked to them. I said I put you on the short list, but the final decision's yet to be made. So that's it for me.
That's a safe thing to do. Yeah.
So
Does anyone have a source for a Raspberry Pi with a 4 gigabyte?
Well, Hamsci is going to has bought, I think, 30 of those. Is that the number, John, on Nathaniel's account?
Yeah, I think that's what I've got.
So John was thinking way ahead, and Hamsci has a stock of those we could supply if necessary. But we don't have millions, but we've probably got enough to get through the
Yeah, I still
26
got some bookkeeping to do because I actually bought them on my account. So, but yeah, we've got 30. I got 30 in my hot little hands that are 4 gigs.
Are those committed for Grape 2, John, or are they?
Actually, the 50 I bought that where the 8 gigabytes are committed to Grape 2. And those I'm not getting out of my site.
Right.
So yeah, we're set for that too. So I've actually got 80 of them sitting in my room, but I won't tell anybody. You didn't hear that.
Yeah, look over both shoulders when you go out to your car, John.
Yeah. It's been more of a
Right,
problem here on campus than you realize.
This meeting is being
So you are
recorded.
saying that the 30 are for Grape ones, right?
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that, Rachel. Sorry. You're gonna have to delete that.
And you had something?
DigiKey is shipping them pretty much the same week if you want them now.
Ooh,
4 gig ones. I know someone who ordered one this week and got it this week.
fantastic.
How much was it?
$55.
All right.
Yeah, the 2 gig is 35, the 4 gig is 55, and the 8 gig is 75 from the Pi 4s. From
These are
Raspberry
the ones
Pi.
that have the new hardware configuration.
Correct. Version 1.5.
Version, okay.
And they're probably the Grape 1, the existing Grape 1 image won't boot on that. That's what we found.
Yeah, we need to get to that topic.
So Rachel, let's move to that topic.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds like a plan. Yeah.
If we're going to be installing Ubuntu, then that's for Bill Engelke to talk about, I guess.
But Bill was saying he was going to supply bespoke cards that are totally already set up with the contents.
That's a different discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not quite accurate because people have to sign up for his node server, so.
That's right, but the card would have Ubuntu on it, right, Bill?
Right, should be a plug and play and it should work with the new hardware.
Right.
Right.
Probably be a good thing to verify.
I guess, yeah, I guess I need to get one of the new Raspberry Pis and test the image on it because
Yeah.
Yes,
Probably be a good thing to do.
I discovered that what happens is you get an error message at boot time and it refuses to boot and it says get the latest OS from www.raspberrypi.com/software, and when you do that on your PC,
Wants Buster, not Raspbian, I forget what I did.
yeah, they want Buster, they want Bullseye, not Buster.
Bullseye.
Yeah, it's one of the.
well, the plan is to use neither of those, is to use
Right.
Ubuntu 22.04 because some of the libraries that you need for digital, it's either digital RF or GNU radio, I don't remember now. Anyway, some of the libraries are not available for Raspbian and some of those other Raspberry Pi specific operating systems. I ran into that when I was first setting up my system. Now, of course, something might have changed.
That's another rabbit hole we don't want to go down right now.
Yeah, I mean, we got to try and eliminate as many variables as possible here, if we can.
Yeah, I don't want to volunteer anyone, but since they're setting up a Grape system, like specifically to test things at Scranton, if is Kong still on?
Where are we
Yeah.
getting these, where, somebody said that there were Raspberry Pis available, was it DigiKey?
DigiKey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
DigiKey?
Yeah,
Did just check, so they might be out of stock already.
Is it DigiKey?
yeah, DigiKey.
Okay,
Also, the other vendor for raspberrypi.org is Mouser. Because I know when I placed my order for the 8 gigs, it took it out of the Mouser supply chain. So I was kind of surprised about that, but Raspberry Pi plays their games. They have their preferred vendors and they prefer research institutions over the vendors.
oh boy, well, you know, what if, oh boy.
Stan, did you have some comments?
Well, just that we need to talk about FL Digi and Raspbian on the new machines.
On the new machine.
The current image won't run on a new machine, so anybody out there who wants to put up an FL Digi machine isn't going to be able to do it unless a new image is created
Correct,
with the new OS.
correct.
And I don't know who would do that, but
Well,
we
I
were
think the
planning on
reason-
testing these machines using FL Digi because you can actually see what's happening. You can't test them with GNU radio.
If you're not
Oh.
using FL Digi to do the data collection, you don't have to use the one I compile, which means you can upload the new OS and load.
No, not GNU. This is Raspbian and FL Digi,
Correct. You can.
the original OS.
And it'll work. But
What will work?
You're not going to be using my image of 4.1.13, which I did in 2019. That will not work.
Correct.
The FL Digi that has been released will run on the current Raspbian OS. And that if you're just using that to test signal levels, you don't need mine.
But
if
the
you're using
Raspbian,
data
the
collection,
Raspbian OS won't work on the newer Pis.
that's not true.
Yes, it is. I have, it will not boot.
You
You're
need the
talking
new
about,
OS.
You need the new OS. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, you need the new
Okay,
OS.
but you
So-
can install regular FL Digi on there.
If you're just looking at signal levels, yes. If you want to do the actual Grape One data collection, no.
We don't have to do the data collection. Okay,
Just for diagnostics, you can use the new one and it'll work fine.
but if somebody, let's see, I don't know what Gary's getting comments about or trying to solicit more people. Are they gonna all be pushed to GNU radio?
Well,
Because if they want to run
FL,
FL Digi,
the intent is to go to Grape 2.
Well, we got to get to October 1st, and
Yeah.
Nathaniel's goals is one is keep the existing FL Digi stations running. In some cases, they'll add a second audio chain and Pi to be able to run GNU radio in parallel.
Right,
And many of these people will just have GNU radio.
right, which all the bases are covered then.
And then long-term, we'll swap everything out for Grape 2, but we got to get that running, working, tested. That's months down the road.
Yep,
I think Stan's point is on existing people that just want to run the FL Digi version of the Grape systems on a newer Pi will have to use the newer operating system and the newer operating system on the SD card. My question to John Gibbons is, can you format when you load a card with the operating system from Pi's software page, it formats the drive. So anything you had on there before is gone.
correct.
Now I have a card that's got a vanilla operating system on it, operating system Bullseye. But I don't have any Grape stuff on there. Is there a way to copy the Grape stuff onto there?
No, because the files for the compilation and the libraries and whatnot, that's a rabbit hole that has to be fixed. They've been updated and it probably will not compile. And that's probably a 3-hour job just to get all the libraries installed, and then it's not trivial.
Okay,
So anyone who gets a new Pi will not be able to run FL Digi.
FL Digi versions.
The word version 1.4.1.13, which I did in 2019.
Until
So they
John
won't be
spends
able
4
to
or 5
collect data.
hours, until John updates the libraries for 4 or 5 hours.
I have to update the operating system image and recompile it and then fix all the broken linkages and broken libraries. And once that's done, but I'm hesitant to do that because FL Digi right now is missing 2,200 samples per day because of the operating system bug of the 0-second rollover.
Well, we're
Microsoft,
not trying to solve that problem though, John. We're just trying to get
Yeah, I
people on
understand.
collecting data, whether
if you
that's,
wanna- yeah,
so it does sound like it needs to be done. I hate to bring it up.
it does, but I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now.
What about just installing the Rev 1.5 Raspbian on the new Pis and then installing FL Digi and running it as far as just to test, to test the system connectivity and the antenna and the Grape.
That will work.
And then you just have one SD card and you pull it out and then you
Right.
slip in, you put in the Ubuntu one and ship it.
That's
Yeah.
pretty much what I just suggested to Stan and George to do. Yeah.
But basically you're phasing out FL Digi, because if someone's Pi fails, their node will no longer run FL Digi.
Not with the new OS. On the new
Right.
times. Correct.
So,
Right.
so that needs to be done. I don't know. Anyway, that was my
I'll
item.
talk to my clone.
That ought to be somewhere on Rachel's list, but that's not necessarily for the big push for the Eclipse that is to be on the new radio. But it is another Grape project.
Yeah, actually, the next version of the Grape 1 was going to have a board that was a daughter board for the Raspberry Pi that had the U-Blox GPS on it that created the frequency directly, and you wouldn't have to buy the Leo Bodnar.
That's another issue,
It's
right?
half the price, so
But that's another issue.
that's another project.
This operating system problem is not a GNU problem, it's an FL Digi problem.
No, it's not an FL
No.
Digi problem. It's an incompatibility with the older operating system and the newer hardware, newer Pi hardware. We're referring to the existing Grape systems as FL Digi, but it's not a problem with FL Digi.
Yes.
Okay, it's the current operating system in the way that we're doing it. But if you're going to bring somebody new on, it's a problem. They can't do it if they have a new Pi.
The 2019 OS image I make does not work with the 2023 new Raspberry Pi 4s.
Correct. You can't
That's
boot.
not surprising. It shouldn't really.
You can't boot.
Yep, it's dead. So
But with the newer, with the what is it called? The Bullseye version, it does boot nicely, but then there's no Grape software on there.
But if you install the FL Digi, that's the new version that works with it, you can do your diagnostics.
I wish I knew how
Right.
to do that.
Actually, they had a version in the add software thing. If you go into add software and search on FL Digi, they may have that in there. It'll be an older version, but it'll work.
Okay, we can do that.
Give that a try, because sometimes they
Yeah.
have that in there. Again, it's not the version I modified, but it is a working version you can use for diagnostics.
Could I ask one brief question? That's why I'm here. Just, is there a document that describes where the software is, the FL Digi, and how to install it? I don't know where to find that.
That's the John Gibbons 77-step document.
Yeah,
Where is that, John?
it should be on the page with all the documentation for the Grape One build.
And where is that?
It's on Mendeley.
Hamside.org.
I think it's
Here.
on Mendeley.com.
Hamside.org/grape1,
Let me write this
down near
down.
the bottom. Is this the right page? Look, Grape 1. Sorry.
Grape 1.
There's a
Go
schematic.
to the bottom, the Mendeley.com, right,
Yeah.
that place. Yeah, that's it.
Click on that, see what happens.
Mendeley.
So, yeah, right there.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, maybe put that link in the chat.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did generate the documentation, but it's
Yeah.
amazing how many people don't read
It
it.
got hidden
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it is 77 steps, and that is somewhat daunting. But that brings up another concern of mine. I believe that this project needs a user consultant because there will be questions from the field, and the New England Grape Group is not prepared to be that person.
Yeah, I
I
found
couldn't agree
all the,
more.
Say again?
Go ahead, Rob.
I just, excuse me, I just found it hard to find the Grape project.
Yeah.
I end up doing a Google search on Hamside Grape in order to find it. I can't find it from the Hamside
Let's send
homepage.
a
No,
note to Nathaniel's that the navigation to it is difficult to follow.
yeah,
They probably need somebody else to look at it for a more human interface.
okay. Thank you. That's all I needed.
And I have a similar question. Is there a software or link somewhere for the GNU radio tree that you're working with?
Being that's custom, that's going to be coming from Bill.
Right.
Have you already got like a start on it or?
Well, he's got it running, but you have to have the image. It's not something you build yourself because he's got custom code in it.
Okay. So what I'm thinking is I'm a guy that wants to do this and I'm not going to be funded or I'm not going to get equipment. I'm going to just bring up my own station. I've got 3 grapes put together right now that I want to put on the air or start receiving signals and maybe get logged into your system and just tell me what the data format needs to be and I'll give it to you.
That's in the 77-step document.
Yeah, it has to be the image.
Okay,
Because we were very specific. The FL Digi output is not useful to us as a direct vanilla flavored from FL Digi. I had to modify for the date headers and how the files are saved and.
Right, it's part of the Grape package.
Yeah,
Well, I thought I'd go straight to GNU radio. It sounds like that's where you're headed and away from FL Digi anyway.
But we're still keeping the FL Digi versions operating and indeed perhaps more because Christina is doing studies wanting the CSV
Grape
format.
2 will also generate that same data stream. So the data format's not going away, the database is not going away, but Grape 2 will do it directly.
But
Right.
that document will tell me what I need to generate. I can.
Yeah, especially if your grapes are older. Bob, that the
1.12, I believe.
Yep, they'll work.
I'm talking about the I'm sorry, not the grapes, the Raspberry Pis. How old are your Raspberry
Yeah, I
Pis?
was gonna use an i5. I don't want to use a Raspberry Pi because it's a more powerful computer and I can build my own system and I don't mind modifying the code
That's
myself.
gonna
I just
directly
know what
push
it-
you into Ubuntu then.
Good luck.
I've got Ubuntu on it already. I'm
Okay.
running. I've got a magnetometer running too already. And I've got other stuff running on that system. Anyway, I can add another one for $175, so they're competitive to me with a Pi and much more powerful. So anyway, I'll look at that document and see if it tells me enough, and I'll come back and ask more questions. I just wanted to listen today and learn what you guys were up to.
Well, I think I could maybe summarize for you, Bob, in that the Raspberry Pi FL Digi version, which has been out there for a couple of years, is fairly mature. We're sending data via FTP to a WWV Radio Club hosted site. And we've recently run into some issues with this brand new Pi hardware. So things are not exactly 100% hunky-dory in the Grape 1.12 FL Digi world. We are trying, and those existing stations we need to keep on the air. We do want to move forward to this GNU radio format. It would be great if you moved ahead and went in that direction, but it's not fully mature. It's kind of a work in progress. So if you want to come along with this and feel a little pain as we get there, I think that'd be great. But that's really where we want to go.
Yeah, I'm experienced with GNU radio too, so I can do that. That sounds good.
Yeah, the custom image you would need, I guess you would have to get that from Bill. And that's, I think he's providing that in a Raspberry Pi OS image that's on a card. So that should be a plug and play.
Well, Bob, if you want to be a geek like myself and build your own system from scratch, I can tell you what goes into it.
That's all I need to know, right?
And then I can send you the GNU Radio GRC. That'll save you some time. I can tell you if you want to build it yourself. Now, I never had any luck doing this on a. Well, let me take that back.
You're running Ubuntu on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, it's Ubuntu. Well, Bob, when you first said, I thought you were saying you wanted to run it under Windows, and I'm saying good luck with that. But
no,
if you have an Intel-based, like an i5 running Ubuntu, it's potentially possible. In fact, it potentially may be a superior solution to all this messing around we're doing with Raspberry Pis, because as you mentioned, we may be able to get Intel-based systems that are comparable in price with the Raspberry Pi and actually available, because I just looked at Mouser and DigiKey, and they don't have Raspberry Pis in stock.
Ooh. Wow, that went quick.
Plus, we're getting ready to potentially have a UPS strike in the middle of all this.
Do they list a lead time, Bill?
No, not that I saw, but I don't use those websites very often, so it might have been there and I didn't see it. So
But the only thing you could do is you could have them email notify you when stock becomes back available. And that can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years.
Yeah, right.
I put my email in the chat. I can find yours too, Bill, if you need me to, and send it directly to you. I'd like to get that information from you.
Okay.
I can put GNU radio on there, whatever build you're running.
Having another resource of somebody who knows new radio, you better watch yourself. You're going to get snarfed up here. We're not going to let go.
Hopefully after the tree gets built, that's all you need is that tree.
Yeah, well, I'll send you a list of stuff you got to install, at least what you may find there's a few things missing off the list, but I'll tell you, I'll give you my best information I have on it and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that, and then I'll try to build a shell file that builds the image that's needed if somebody wants to run an i5 system.
Ooh. Wow.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns, agendas, or discussion items?
Well, that's
Yeah,
all.
I mentioned earlier, and I think it was passed by, I really think this project needs a user consultant.
Oh, yes. That was in the middle of other discussions. Yeah.
So that should go on somewhere on your list. Somebody needs to be,
Almost a help desk.
somebody needs to be volunteered for that.
The isn't that what the Raspberry Pi Grape group is for that forum was intended for? I mean, Jim was running that. Well, you're not, Jim?
Well, you're right. I think that's a good place to receive the questions, give each other help. I think what we're gonna also need is kind of a Grape One support page, you know, saying if you've got this Pi, you need this software. If you got this, you got that. Because there's a lot of variables and I don't know how where people can find all those variables. There's just a lot of stuff to
Right
document.
now, it's kind of tribal knowledge, which is
Right.
need to
Yeah.
get into the documentation, but
Yeah, I was running that page, but we've been kind of dormant, but now it's time to get something moving again.
I think George's suggestion may be particularly applicable for the 20 units that are going to go out.
That's my point.
If you want them to get up quickly, you don't want them to go round and round on some help desk page.
Right, you want them to talk to some person that knows.
I would say
Definitely.
since the New England group is making them and distributing them, you would
No.
probably be the best ones to do it.
No,
No, I think we have enough to do.
Yeah, welcome.
I think having the discussion though on Groups IO would be good. Everybody could see it and have one place to go to see how it evolves.
Yeah.
One more question. I see the document of the file formats used. Is there a documentation? Where would I find document of how to the protocol for uploading data to your database?
it's in the 77-step document.
It depends on which upload you're talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about the current Grape version, Grape Gen 1. This is a document titled How to Install the Grape Gen 1 OS Image and Use It. And it's quite complete.
Yeah, the file formats are really handled by the software, so you really don't have to dig into that and see it, but there is specific stuff that it's
Yeah.
looking for.
Right.
I'm not, yeah, I see the file formats. They're well defined. I'm looking at the upload protocol. How is it, once you create these sets of file, where is it described how they're
An
uploaded?
FTP server setup.
Oh, it's step number.
I'm
It's
looking at the,
pre-configured because the FTP server doesn't change.
Right.
So
well, I guess that my motivation here is that I've got, you know, I've just finished integrating Phil Karn's K9Q radio software into my Whisper Daemon package. And I can listen to 100 channels simultaneously, and I've configured it to listen to all the Whisper, the WWV channels. So I've got WAV files, you know, for all 5 WWVs, and one of which would be it would be Glenn N6GN's system, which has line of sight to WWV. So it'd be an excellent way for me to calibrate the quality of the software implementation for Whisper as well as for you know, WWV reception.
Do you
So
have a GPS discipline oscillator for the frequency standard?
yes, it is. It's a Bogner disciplined RX 888.
Oh, okay.
well,
And-
but you're recording WAV files. What the files for the FTP transfer are just the CSV files of the data from FLDigi and then a graphic, and that's all it is. So
Yes, I understand that. So I can read your document about how to, you know, how to create the CSV. That those are you know, well documented in the PDF that I found. But there's once I create this the set of files, which are pretty easy to create, how do I get them up into your system? I mean, I of course need a node number and so on to be able to do that. But I wouldn't ask for one until I've kind of finished my implementation. But I don't know how to do. I know how to create the set of files, the metadata files, and the others. I didn't look at it in detail, but once I create those in a directory tree on a Whisper Daemon machine,
Right.
how do I deliver them to?
Well, we'd have, it's an
Crontab
FTP,
job.
it's a file transfer protocol. It's as simple as it goes. But
Yeah.
the problem would be the naming convention of the files, and
The header information has to be the same, and
it would be, yeah, I don't know, you'd have to work that out with John to figure out how we do that. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, well, that's why I'm here today, is to see if you know, if I can do that. I think it'd be useful for me and hopefully wouldn't disrupt your work. You know, another approach for me would be to just take the demodulated WWV audio from K9 and feed it into your whole, you know, your FLDG or whatever the whole suite is you use right now. But that involves installing a whole, you know, whole nother suite of software. I don't, you know, that would be a
well, if you're receiving WWV directly as an AM signal, you're not receiving what we're after. We're actually referencing it to kilohertz down and looking at the carrier difference in the movement of the 1 kilohertz tone we're generating by being a kilohertz down. So
yes,
files of WWV really would not be of use to us.
yes, I understand. I mean, I know that I need to do filtering on the demodulated audio and show the frequency difference between the carrier and, you know, the received WWV frequency. But I can do all that quite easily. That's and I'm fully engaged with Phil Karn. So he's actually expressed an interest in this WDV monitoring. So, I mean, he's the author of, you know, you know, wrote the demodulating code that most of us are using. So it's in WWV, so in Whisper Daemon. So I've got a signal processing expert here to generate whatever I need out of this.
Rob, you should be aware of there's two flavors of this. There's one that is using FLDigi and another one that is storing a little chunk of bandwidth in digital RF format. That's what Nathaniel's pushing for. So,
And is that documented also in this document y'all are talking about, the digital RF format?
No, sir.
Okay,
that's
that would be interesting.
That's
to
a whole
find.
separate 30-page document to get to that.
I'm sort of at the same place Rob is. Just tell me exactly what data format you want and let me generate it.
Yeah, that's kind of I can give you raw IQs, you know, in any format you want. I mean, Phil generates everything, you know, anything I want, he'll demodulate and give it to me. So right now for Whisper, of course,
run through Nathaniel is, do we want to do this extra development effort?
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
In the next 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Okay, well, I'll talk to Nathaniel about it. It sounds like this isn't the right forum.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, my other idea is to
focused
just
on
get
these
a
12
pie
weeks.
and reverse engineer what you've done and then copy it. I might do that.
I was hoping this could be done in a fairly simple extension as a different mode. I've got my software recognizes different ways to process a receive channel. So I was planning to add a Grape mode, and that would get, you know, if this got implemented, you'd have 40 or 50 receive sites around the world listening for WWV and reporting to you. But it's not a trivial project, but I'm willing to do it if it would be, it would give me, you know, our Whisper Daemon sites a kind of reference, as well as, you know, give you additional data sources. And there'd be one calibrated source, Glenn's, up on the hill above WWV.
And Rob, those are all GPS disciplined, aren't they?
All these sites, everybody is going GPS disciplined. This is the, if you guys are familiar, this is the RF 888, and it has a internally, it has an option for externally discipline it. So I've got a Wagner to drive it. And most of my Whisper Daemon users are in the process of buying these 888s and Wagners or other disciplined oscillators to drive them. So that's so there will be these, we'll calibrate the whole thing with Glenn's site because he's line of sight to WWV.
Who
Well, I
makes the
guess we've got to
RT80?
decide. We've got to decide whether this is gonna, whether what you're doing, Rob, and what you're doing, Bob, are going to be FL Digi or digital RF.
Whatever is easiest in a way. Initially.
No, that's not the answer. Whatever's going to be most useful to the science community is the answer.
So what I see is you've got this project rolling with all these people. Stay on your track. Don't change anything you're doing. But some people on the side that want to contribute that are not asking for funding or anything other than just give me the basic information you need in the login, and we're going to squirt data at you. In the same format.
This is not the forum for that, but thank you for your effort.
Okay.
Gentlemen and people, I've got to leave, unfortunately. So till next time. Happy trails.
Yeah, I will mention that there is also plans for using WhisperNet data already to study eclipses and stuff in the upcoming. So at the very least, I think you or if you'd like me to drop Dr. Frizell a line. He's the, lead scientist at HamSci, and he'd probably be the best person to direct those questions to.
Yeah, I've talked with Nathaniel about it. Yeah, the WhisperNet data is problematic, to be honest. It's only metadata. It only tells you whether it really whether a signal is received. Doesn't tell you about with much detail the frequency of the received whisper spot. It only goes to 1 Hertz accuracy, or I should say resolution. But we have all that data, to 1/10 of a Hertz resolution and Doppler shift data to millihertz resolution in a separate parallel database. So for whisper signals, we are certain we have good Doppler shift data. My interest in the Grape, in your efforts is a way to validate, another way to validate the quality of our receive sites, and perhaps contribute to your database at the same time. So that's what's motivating my question. But I'll talk to Nathaniel about it.
Yes, absolutely. Because there are different ways that kind of data can be used and everything, but if it's Doppler related, then it might be worth looking into. Does anyone have any questions about Grape stuff or comments about Grape stuff? Because at this point we are 30 minutes over and I would like to close things out.
I'm looking at a Amazon. It says Raspberry Pi 4 Model B 2019 quad core and all that good stuff. They have 2 of them in stock. Is that useful? The 2019 bothers me.
That's
2019
gigabytes.
I'm sorry, you doubled. Bill Engel.
2019.
It says Model B 2019 quad core. And I don't know what the 2019 in the description.
We don't know whether that's the new one or the old one. What did they do, John? Did they change the firmware or something, or?
Some of the register mapping and stuff for the newer core control is different. And the old OS doesn't know what to do with it. So it has trouble turning on the cores from what I understand. It's just not compatible. And you would expect that because it's a newer super whiz bang version of the one we had in 2019. So, I mean, the code was written on a 3B.
Well, is this worth spending $75 on each?
Can't answer that one.
Okay, I'll skip it. Thank you.
Okay, any final comments, questions, or concerns?
Bob, N5BRG, I will send you an email with some. I'll send you what information I have about this.
Thank you
And
very
you
much.
decide what to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Barring any last minute comments, 7-3, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging around. And I'll see you next week.
73.
Bye.